This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
The generosity practice takes all the good work you do in meditation, self-care, and alchemizes it into fuel for you to get out and make a difference. It's where your personal sanctuary directly affects how you help people. It aligns your inner truth with the rest of your life. If you truly commit to this practice, you won't be able to get out there and make a difference fast enough. You won't need to keep safe in a cave. Valeria interviews Christina Frei. She is the author of The Generosity Practice, 40 Days to Unstoppable. Christina runs a boutique marketing practice called Innate Marketing Genius, where she helps solo business owners own their voice, market to their strengths, and get the right clients consistently. Her holistic marketing approach grew out of a lonely, chaotic time when she moved to Boston all on her own and discovered her own way to really connect with people. She recently gave a TEDx talk on this. Personally, she's on a mission to live more sustainably. She is obsessed with thrift shopping and is a new convert to plant-based eating. In between, she chases her dog around with a stuffed animal snake, meditates on a pink couch, cold plunges like Wim Hof all year long, and obsesses over the perfect cup of green tea, all in a seaside town just north of Boston. Meet Christina at innatemarketinggenius.com. Here's the interview with Christina Frei.
In your own words, who is Christina Frei?
Yeah, so how to put that? I would say that I am somebody who has really wrestled with finding my own voice in the world and figuring out my own path for a long time. And it really started with wanting to follow in my father's footsteps. He's really successful, has an engineering company, just conquer the world. And it just took me a long time to get out from under that. And it caused a lot of health problems along the way. Like I didn't know it was related to that, but my inability to really know myself and connect to my own voice was really detrimental. And then one of the things that truly helped me turn things around is figuring out how I absolutely love helping other people. And the practice that I'm probably going to share with you in a minute or two is called the generosity practice. And it's very much about that. It clarifies on an ongoing basis, like what really matters to me, how I really want to serve others. And that really was one of the big things that turned things around for me. And it just helped me realize who I am, what I care about, and what my voice is really meant for. So if I had to just put it in a nutshell, I would start with that.
Yes, it sounds wonderful to know that you are where you are today. And at the same time, it's sad to hear that so many of us, including myself, go through this process of finding ourselves in a way, as you put it, as finding our own voice, but it's finding our true selves in a way, the way I understand it. Why does it take so long, Christina? For me, it took, I think, was at the age of 37, I'm 46 now, that I really started tap into what I really wanted to do. I would love to hear from you the obstacles before we talk about how to get there, how you got there specifically. What are the obstacles to listening and to expressing that true voice?
I would say one of the things that made it much slower for me is, I looked around me at what people were doing and what worked for them. And a lot of times I just didn't see myself reflected in that, but I didn't ask the question of like, well, just because all of these people around me who happen to be working at certain corporations, or, like my mother was a stay-at-home mom, all of her friends were stay-at-home moms, or at least a lot of them. And because I'm in my 50s and I just came up through the 70s and 80s, and that was just much more common back then. And there weren't a lot of other examples out there of how to be. You either were going to get a great job, make a lot of money, raise a family, et cetera, or you were just going to be nobody. And yeah, things were changing, obviously, but I have to give myself a little bit of compassion around it all. It's like, and everybody else too, because it's sort of all we knew. One of the things that I consider to be the biggest gift now is the visceral experience of what it's like to have my own truth. That sounds so fluffy. It's like,
yes,
what does that even mean?
Right.
But once you've had the visceral experience, and you can have it in many different ways, there's really no going back. So that's really like, in different ways, I started having those experiences of like, what does that feel like? What is it actually like in my body to have my own truth? And so the more I had that, the more I just couldn't turn away from that, and I wasn't going to be an engineer in a corporate setting. So, yeah.
Would you say it takes courage, trust, practice, being open? What would you say is the first step, if there is one? If it is linear, usually it's not.
Right. I would say one of the most helpful things for me is finding people who were asking good questions around all this stuff. One of the first communities I accidentally happened into was a group of singers who do a cappella in New York City. And they were just people who asked questions about life in a time where meditation was not that prominent and yoga was not that prominent, but these were just curious souls. And I would say they absolutely set me on a path of, keep asking, keep exploring, keep trying. Keep just jumping into the dark.
Yes,
basically,
the unknown, as you say.
Yeah,
in the book. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. I love that. So openness, being open, curious, that really helps. Has been my case. That was my path. And you mentioned early comparison, right? Mm-hmm. That's a tough one, isn't it? Because it feels like, especially as teenagers, when we are really young, that's what we have. That's our reference. It's what's happening around us. So it's not easy not to compare or not want to do something the other people are doing. How do you define success these days, Christina?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say success is really looking carefully at what matters to you. Like for me, what really matters to me is, having work where I'm helping others in a fulfilling way, and also being in community with people I care about in ways that are not just nice, right? They're just like, we actually lift each other up. We have a great time. And, and I could add to that, but it's sort of, what really matters to me. And then the willingness to take action in that direction. It's not just being aware. It's also taking that meaningful action to bring it into your life.
So it takes courage. Every time I think about action, actually, when it's inspired, we can't help it but just act and do something. But sometimes it takes a while. And what does it feel like at the level of, let's say, emotions, psychologically, and at the level of the body as well, of course? What is the feeling when we are there, per se, when you know that you are listening to your own voice and having that experience?
One of the things I noticed for myself is, I can just tell you specifically in my body, it was definitely in my lower belly. I think it varies for people, but I always get like a DPS in my lower belly. And what is such a great indicator is I have this sense that I will do whatever it takes to get to the place I need to go. Like it's sort of pointing me in a certain direction. And I'll go through a lot of things to make sure that whatever this is gets brought into reality. right? Like there's this inner yes, this inner knowing. That happened to me when, with this practice where I was like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to just teach this thing to as many people as I can possibly get my hands on, because I just know it's the right thing. I don't care how many people say no or, rejection, failure, whatever. It's like, that to me is sort of an indicator.
Yeah, there's something really powerful to listen to you saying that. So it's almost like it's something that's driving us rather than the other way around. It's almost like we're being driven or we're being thought to do these things. Guided, really. That's what I want to say. It really feels that way, listening to you, the way you speak. Yeah, I can relate to that. What is your idea of happiness? Yeah, talk to me about that. What is your understanding of what happiness is?
Yes, happiness is sort of a lovely, I would say it's frosting on the cake of living a fulfilling life. It's not something that I necessarily count on. It's more just, to me, what matters much more is fulfillment and purpose. Right. And sometimes purpose kicks you in the butt, let's be honest.
Yes.
It's really painful and hard.
Yes.
And it's like, happiness happens, but I don't want to have expectations that I always am happy.
Yes.
That's all.
Yeah, I love that wisdom too. Right. I usually go for inner peace, which it is very much related to fulfillment, maybe coming from a different place, because I have a lot of, let's say, spiritual understandings and philosophies and practices that I engage with that kind of solidifies this realization that we are already fulfilled. So there's really nothing to be added to what we are. But this might sound abstract. And then that's why it seems like that's why we add these ideas of sharing our gifts and purpose and having talents. So I'm very careful around these things because sometimes it also feels like an obligation, and then it takes the peace away. And then it seems like we need to keep doing what we are doing in order to feel fulfilled. And that's what I'm very careful around. I try to be fulfilled no matter what. If I'm doing this or not doing this, which I call meaningful and great, which I love this work I do, but I try to practice visualize even not doing this at all and still feeling fulfilled. Yeah, I want to say that because it's that's coming from spiritual practices and with spiritual understandings. But let me ask you, since we're talking about spirituality, what is spirituality to you and what are your spiritual views of yourself in life?
Sure. I would say spirituality, what I've noticed is that there is a realm. There's like a sort of ether that we all occupy. And one thing that I have learned how to recognize along my travels is that each one of us is vibrating in a certain way at any given moment. And so that to me is like, there is spirit within you. And, one fun thing that I have learned how to do is just to see color, right? Like if I wanted to, I'd say, okay, well, what's Valeria's color today? Like everybody is vibrating in a color. Sometimes there's other colors that kind of cloud it, but it's so beautiful to just see or even contemplate, even if you have no idea what color people are at. It's like that person's vibrating at a certain frequency, right? And it's just like, let me just tune into that. How are they doing? What's affecting them? So that to me is like, if you're buying into that we're all vibrating in a certain way, then like that to me is spirit. We're all just a bunch of spirit.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Right. It's interesting you talk about color because I had this practice or those visions of seeing colors every time I heard something, even the weekdays or the person's name, then a color would show up. And I wonder what that is. Does it have to do with the chakras, with colors and numbers? They play a huge role in spiritual visions.
I will share one thing with you related to that, Valeria. I was at the Berkeley Psychic Institute in Berkeley, California in the early 2000s. And that's actually, we were in our sixth chakra. That was the training. And we just looked at color. So if you're seeing color after you hear somebody's name, that's actually, we did that every single time we did a reading. Someone would say their name 3 times and we would just see the color. We'd be like, oh, you're at purple today. And so maybe that's a little bit of what you just saw color for the people whose names you heard. I don't know. That might have been happening for you.
Right. Yeah. Usually I'm very intuitive with these things, and I love the mystery too. So I just live as it is. It stands in its own, like I let it be what it is without trying to rationalize it too much or make it explain everything. But I love the idea, the system, the chakra systems, that makes sense. It resonates true. Let me ask you actually, I wanted to introduce your book. It's titled The Generosity Practice, 40 Days to Unstoppable. Talk to me about the main intention of writing your book.
Sure. The main intention of writing my book was pretty much the same as the main intention of doing the practice. It's that every human within themselves has this innate capacity to offer something gorgeous to the world, even if they have no money to do it. One of the things that I play with in that practice is pretend that you have limitless resources and, or just, there's no, like you have all the money in the world and you could give anything to everyone on the planet or whoever you wanted to. The joy that can come out of that contemplation, that is what a human can do. And so that's why I wrote that book, because I want people, we all experience that to some degree, but you can actually really focus yourself on it like a laser beam. And what it does is I've pretty much counted 21 different things that happen to us when we focus in that particular direction. It can go very deep. It can have big changes, even if, again, let's say you decide that day, I'm going to give out big piles of puppy dogs, right? And it's like, you're not going to go do that in real life. But what it does to you internally, just by thinking about that, is profound. That's what I've been studying for a while. And I share a little bit about that in the book as well.
I read some pages of your book and I contemplated the idea. And then for me, when I read this, you actually start the book saying, it all comes down to this, what feels good to offer to life today. And then for me, it came something that it might sound abstract. Again, it's the spiritual knowledge, that understanding, that knowing, although it can be known really with the logical mind, but that we are already complete and whole, that there's no need to be afraid of anything that will happen or could happen. And I was wondering how I could give this. I'm already pretty much doing this in a way by hosting this podcast and writing my books and collaborating with so many amazing people. But I thought about my neighbors and I was wondering, how would I do that? They probably would close the door in my face if I told them that they're already complete and fulfilled and just be happy. Now, this is happiness, really, the realization that you are what you're looking for. And I know this is an ancient message, spiritual knowledge, but so many of us don't have that yet. That sounds abstract. Does it have the same effect within the practice of generosity practice if I do it that way?
Yeah. People ask me that actually quite often, which is basically, can you give away sort of feelings, right? And of course you can, especially if it feels really beautiful to you. Yeah. So that's one thing. You can beam that out to the world. I mean, you can have as much fun with this thing as you possibly could have. I will say this, as far as, because believe me, I have certain neighbors that I would love to have the ability to give some beautiful things to. But I'm also aware that, just to bring it back to frequency, we're all at a certain frequency, which makes us available to receive certain things at certain times. Some people are ready for some things. And so I've actually built into the practice, you want to be offering this out to all of life with the caveat that it's going to go where it's most needed and wanted, where people are ready. You don't have to worry about that. You can have faith in the supreme intelligence of all of life. Like, just to have that kind of life at your, as a colleague, it knows where it all, like, that is such a relief not to have to worry about that. And the reason I use that, like, I'm a marketer, and the reason I have every client use it is because they're always worried about, like, well, if I put this, marketing out, what if nobody likes it? It's like, let's get you to a place where you stop worrying about that. That's what that's about.
I love that approach. So it's letting go of outcomes. It feels very freeing, that practice, which it is one of my biggest practice, just done and forgotten, which is a Zen also practice or philosophy. Yes, that sounds wonderful. It frees us from holding on to what could happen, right? I absolutely love that idea. So you just mentioned, so talk to me about, you're the author of, again, the Generosity Practice, 40 Days of Unstoppable, but you are also a branding and marketing expert. So how did that come to be, this combination of doing what you do as a generosity practice, let's say, guide, and also the marketing person?
Yeah. So when I was studying the generosity practice, I had 40 people in 5 countries do it for 30 days, use the practice, and send me videos and feedback. And a few of them were business owners, and they basically said, listen, Christina, I don't know why this happened, but when I used the generosity practice, I was much more consistent as a marketer. I was much more willing to go out and meet people. I was much more okay with being rejected. It just didn't matter to me as much. And also, they were better at the negotiation table because they were much more able to listen to the person on the other side of the table. So I took that and I ran with it. I had another field study, 40 business owners. I walked them through a very deep level of the practice. And without going too much into the details, it basically reveals, using a version of the generosity practice, how they most love serving other human beings. Like this beautiful archetype of service emerged from those journeys. And then I translated that into marketing plans. It was so gorgeous. Like, hey, if you're the one who wants to bring a huge celebration to everyone in your life, let's make sure that your marketing really reflects that. Or if you're the one that always sees what is possible 10 miles ahead of everybody else, you want them to go for it, go for their big goals. Let's make sure your marketing includes that. So that then turned into what I call your innate marketing genius or your marketing archetype, where it's like, this is your favorite way of helping humans, aside from what you do for a living, right? Like you could be a real estate agent and totally be this nurturer or an adventure guide or a door opener. Like these are the archetypes I've discovered. And it's like, once you know that, you can tell a better story. You can get out there and change lives much more deeply and get clients because of it. So it's all grounded in that generosity practice space. It's just sort of, I don't know, it's just a little more practical and applicable to your messaging and your marketing.
Right, yeah, which very much resonates with me. It's the extension of ourselves. That's what I see, service. So we are simply doing that, but in a better way, as you teach them. Christina, I usually ask this question to some of my guests, not all of them. Why do you think we have this desire, this strong, deep desire to help others? Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Sure. I don't know if I have an answer to that. I would just say, isn't it wonderful to be a human with that desire at all? Like, I just love celebrating that.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm okay not knowing why that is. I mean, I can come up with reasons. Of course, it's nice to, like, you don't want to see other people suffering, right? Like, it's really hard to watch other people suffering, especially people you care about. So, of course, but a lot of times when we're trying to stop suffering, it's a place of reactivity in ourselves. Like, oh, let me just solve all your problems so I don't have to suffer. That's not what we're talking about, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's more like, wow, I just want to serve and bring beauty and love and life and all the jolly things to the planet. It's like, I don't know, maybe we're just built to expand. And that's part of that.
That's a beautiful answer, because it goes back to the fundamental truth that everything is connected. So there's no separation. So that makes a lot of sense. And we can feel that at this very, let's say, the unknown to the mind level. We feel that and we act upon that, even though we create all these ideas around it. But that's what it feels like to me. So thank you for saying that. Another confirmation. So I have a question that I, for some reason, I think I read in your book something about gratitude and generosity. What is the connection between generosity and gratitude? Does generosity come from gratitude or gratitude from generosity?
Probably both, but I would say this, that gratitude, it's almost like you have to know and enjoy what you have before you can then turn around and offer it. We can't give things away that we don't have in the first place. And to really, truly, like, let's just talk metaphysically here, to really have something or to give something, I should say, we have to have it first. So I think that's about ownership and acknowledgement. It's like, wow, do I have, because part of the practice is you really have to learn how to, or practice focusing and generating something out of nothing. Like if I want to give away acceptance, I have to actually feel acceptance first. Yes. And sometimes that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. It is a challenge sometimes to receive more than to give. I have experienced that myself, and probably still do. I need to become more aware of it. But do you know why that is? Why is that easier for some of us to love others, to give others things, and even our own most beautiful feelings before we do that to ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of the receiving from ourselves, and then there's receiving from others. So there's a couple of things there. I mean, I honestly, this is like a life question. I think it's the kind of question that you could live for 80 years, and it's an important question. And I would say part of my own journey has revealed to me that it's much easier to stay in an identity of service to others and be a do-gooder. I have to be very careful about becoming a do-gooder, too much like that, just doing it because I'm serving a role, and therefore no one can ever tell me that I'm being, wrong or whatever. So that, and then as far as like that's more from outside myself, but as far as myself, like giving to myself, boy, I am working on that one, Valeria. That's I'm personally not in the habit of being like, wow, I think there's a beautiful way of being that I maybe personally have never experienced, which is, or I have, but just, it doesn't last, which is, wow, I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm in alignment with my purpose. I'm around the people that feel like my people. And then you're just in a flow. And when we're in that flow, again, I'm just using words for things that are really hard to put words to. Then it's much easier to be like, yeah, I'm a child of God. I'm wonderful. I deserve love. Like you're just in that space. It's just something you get there. I mean, of course, my mother or anyone who loves me is always going to be like, you're so lovable. And like people who are in my life are going to be like, well, we love you.
Yeah. Yes.
Like if you can receive that or not our problem. But I do think that it helps a lot to be in a certain kind of flow to truly receive the love that is there from life.
Right. Yes. And that sounds like a practice, doesn't it? The practice of being open. Wow, that makes me think about, in my case, that's what has helped me a lot, to be open, always open and curious about whatever happens and whatever is happening. So it creates that sense of always receiving. Being open means receiving. So it's always receiving. And then, that's how I define love anyway, the giving and receiving of what is here, what's presenting itself. It's really a practice at the body-mind complex. Yeah, from the human experience it is. I think it will never end, that practice. So I made some notes here about your book. I read the pages, some of the pages, and then let me see what caught my attention. Yeah, in the book you say, it goes back to that, self-care. The generosity practice takes all the good work you do in meditation, self-care, and alchemizes it into fuel for you to get out and make a difference. This feels like the practice, the generosity practice feels like that's the practice of giving and receiving, isn't it, Christina? It feels very much like it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny when you're doing it, and you're doing it in a way that, you're getting results out of it. That's exactly what happens. Like you see yourself giving something out to the world, and you're getting the gorgeous feeling of making a difference and just enjoying giving out fun, wacky, beautiful, and like silly things sometimes. It's just so fun that's the gift. You're giving yourself the gift of the fun while you're feeling yourself give a gift to the world. So everybody wins.
It can become a flow, but it's not. At some point, it might not feel like that. And then what we do in that case, just keep trying. And then the question is, isn't it, trying implies getting out of the flow, almost like not being able to go back to it. And that's why we are trying in the first place. And then it feels like it creates even more stress by trying too hard to give or receive. I mean, I would just wonder if you recommend more meditation and trust. In that case, just trusting what is.
Yeah, and as far as the trying goes, I'm also aware that, there's room for making a mess and struggling sometimes. It's like sometimes we're just in a place where, I wrestle with that. It's like, is it okay for me to just really be confused and all over the place and try things and they don't work? And it's like, let me just hash this out. And because the more acceptance I have of that craziness, it's sort of like a paradox. It's like the more we accept how messed up things might seem and feel, like the faster we're going to probably come into some kind of flow,
Yes, that's it. Yeah. You see, that's a beautiful antidote is the acceptance. That to me really translates into being open to life. Just be open. Another thing you said that caught my attention in your book, you say the official generosity practice asks you to step into the unknown and make certain choices. It is creative, but can be daunting. So talk to me about that for a moment, the daunting part especially.
Sure. So it's a 10-minute practice. And if you ask the question, what feels good to offer to life today? That could take 30 seconds, right? Like, what does feel good? Oh, I know. Yeah. I'll give out candles.
Right.
But what the depth of the practice asks you to quiet your mind, really come into your body, slow your breathing, and wait. You basically ask that question and you step right out into the unknown and allow life, or whatever you want to call it, to show you something, to let something download as if you're drifting off to sleep and you're starting to dream. Like it's that liminal place where you're not entirely in control. That's the deepest level of the practice, where something can download that surprises you. And you're like, why am I giving away a pile of sticks today?
Yeah.
Like your logical mind is going to ask those questions, but your deepest knowing is like, oh, I'm giving away those pile of sticks. Like, I love this and I don't even know why. And I don't care. I'm just going to give them. So that's the unknown. It's like, you have to just be willing not to have a perfect, beautiful answer right out of the gate. You have to be like, I've noticed that the more humble I stay and the more like, oh, I really want to know, but I don't know.
Yes. Right.
Right. Then something incredible can come in.
It's coming from a place of freedom. That's what it sounds like. Being free enough to just let everything else to be free, especially the energies that surround us.
Yep.
It sounds a bit like the law of attraction or the law of manifestation. Do they share the same principles in a way?
I would say that it came out of, I'll tell you exactly how I developed this. It was by accident because it actually relates to what you're saying. So when I was at the Berkeley Psychic Institute, one of the tools was all about like manifesting. And you basically imagine what you want and then you send it off to the edge of the universe so that you can get out of your own way and let it come back to you. And it's like, yeah, that's law of attraction straight up. But what I noticed in myself was I was always asking like, well, where's my stuff? I couldn't let it go long enough to let it come back to me. And so one day I was imagining something beautiful. I was like in my meditation space and I imagined a purple rose and it was like gorgeous. And I just wanted to just send it out. And I realized I'm like, I just want to send it out and I don't care if I'll ever get a purple rose. I don't even know if they exist. I'm sure they do. And at that moment, my life changed. I swear, like that purple rose, everything changed. Cause now I was like, oh, I can just give stuff out because it's fun to give, and stop being attached to the outcome. That's what happened. And that eventually turned into the generosity practice. But it took me like 13 years to figure out, oh yeah, I can. First of all, this is going to help me a lot, which it did. Second of all, this is going to help a lot of people, which it did. It just took me a long time to get there.
Right. And what do you attribute to this, the time that it takes? Is it almost a change that's happening within yourself at the level, the physical level, the DNA cell level, and then moving to the mind, or the other way around? What's happening between?
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is leaving yourself 10 minutes of time is just so that you can quiet your mind and really connect with something, like as if you were doing a creative practice, or as if you were really tuning in to divinity in some capacity, right? It's just a way for you to shift out of the day-to-day. I don't know what's happening. I mean, we could talk about heart math. I'm sure there are things happening, right? Like that we could measure. I'd love to do that one day. But I just want to give people, I don't always spend 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes 20. But I just want to give people like a easy container to wrap their mind around. Like, take the 10 minutes. It'll be worth your time.
See, I love this practice because also it is a spiritual practice, I have to say, because it has to do with letting go of control, which has very much to do with the idea of the ego, of the false self that is being talked about a lot within this many spiritual philosophies, especially Hindu and Buddhism. So that kind of resonates true. So it is letting it go of what is trying to know everything and trying to get to destinations and outcomes. That's a profound practice, though, if we can do that. And thank you for doing that yourself, Christina. It makes already a huge impact in this reality. One of us doing that, I think it's enough to change probably lots of people around us. The energy of that's really, truly beautiful.
Thank you.
So, we're almost at the end, but I do want to mention also that I noticed that you have guided audios as well, and you offer a link. So I have the link here. I won't have the link on the podcast profile. Once it's live, I will not have it there because this is in your book. But talk to me for a moment about the guided audios. Are they for every day? Do you have one for each day?
Yeah, so there's different, what I would call levels to the practice. The first basic practice is kind of what you and I have been talking about, Valeria, where it's like, well, there's a 10-minute guided. There's also a 5-minute. If somebody only has 5 minutes, that's fine. And then there's level 2, which is where you start being able to, like, if artists are really good at getting strange, getting weird, like just trying things that no one understands. That's level 2. And I won't even say what level 3 is. But anyway, so each of the recordings is meant for the different ways of doing the practice. It's not every single day. There's probably about 6 or 8 total recordings, depending on what kind of practice you're doing. Okay,
so that's good to know. Because I saw a link to one of the guided audios, and I thought about asking you just to understand more how it works, because I didn't access all the pages. But that's good to know. So it's a really beautiful practice. I see from a big picture that it is a practice of freedom, really, becoming free ourselves and letting everything else to be free. They already are, but we have this idea or this perception that we are controlling reality, when in truth we are not. That's what it feels like to me. But there's something about also the idea of free will. So this is where practice like this, the generosity practice, really, it's very helpful. If there's something that there are choices that we can make, then this will be a beautiful place to come from. Service to help others to improve their lives. So just give to others our own gifts. It's incredibly beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And also, I'll just say one thing about that. It's not just giving for the sake of giving. This is joyful giving. That just means that the person who's offering is as fulfilled as the person who is receiving. And to me, that is a lifeline for our future as a civilization. Like if we know that when we give to each other, it can actually be life-giving to ourselves, why wouldn't we then be more generous with each other?
That's a beautiful vision. For the idea of making a living, making money, that just would change everything. Because now we see so much fear around money and making money coming from that place. I love that. Thank you so much again, Christina, for this vision and the work that you're offering.
Great to be here, Valeria.
And then let's see the ending questions. But before I ask them, would you like to add anything else that you left unsaid for today's conversation, Christina?
I would just say that if you're listening to this and you're having a day, like you're just having a day, then just play with asking the question. Like if you could just give one thing to the people in your neighborhood, that would be really, it would just tickle you. Like you could just give them all coffee, ice cream, or a cupcake or whatever. Just like spend 1 minute thinking about what would be fun to give to the people in your neighborhood right now and watch what happens to the rest of your day.
Yes, what a beautiful invitation. You made me think again, visualize that again. So what do you love most about being in the human body, about the human experience?
What a wonderful question that is. All right, let's see if I can really put my finger on an honest answer because there's so many things.
Right.
I would say right now, something I absolutely love is like the physical. I'm just going to go right to my dog. I'm not in a relationship right now. So it would relate to that if there were a man in my life, but I'll just say having another being close to me and tuning in to how they're doing and just that ease and comfort and just like having that little guy next to me and nothing has to happen. I have no expectations on anything. He's just there and there's joy just in him being there. Like I freaking love that.
Yes. I love the way you express that, that it can be felt. That joy, there's a lot of power in it. That's to me true power. What is another word for life?
I'll say vitality.
Yes. I want to thank you again for your beautiful presence and everything that you're offering, that you're expressing in this human body. It's truly beautiful, though, and I can feel and hear that's coming from, I can't help it but call a place of unconditional love, a divine place. So thank you for being open to those beautiful, the only energies that I believe exists, which is love. So thank you again, Christina.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Valeria.
And before we say goodbye for today, where is the best place to find more information about you and your book?
Sure. If you just go to I think the easiest is my name. So just www.Christina with CH, Christina Frei, FREI.com.
Yes, and I'll have that link on your podcast profile and also the Amazon link to your book.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you again, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now, Christina.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Christina and her work, please visit innatemarketinggenius.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.